A courtroom in the heart of Alabama, 1956. The ceiling fans creak lazily overhead, doing little to cut through the muggy heat that clings to everyone in the room. The wooden benches are packed, white faces on one side, black faces on the other, a line drawn not by law anymore, but by habit so ingrained it might as well be carved in stone. Up front, a judge looms over his bench, his jowls quivering as he lets out a sharp, mocking laugh. It's directed at a man standing below him, a black man named James Carter, his shirt patched at the elbows, his posture unbent despite the weight of every eye in the room. The judge's chuckle ripples through the gallery, a few snickers joining in, like hyenas circling a wounded animal. "Boy," the judge says, his voice dripping with condescension, "you think you're going to talk your way out of this little mess?" James doesn't blink. He doesn't bow. And what happens next? It's not just a twist. It's a detonation that'll leave that judge, and everyone watching, picking their jaws up off the floor. Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about one man in one courtroom. It's about a war that's been fought in the shadows for centuries, and trust me, you're going to want to see how this battle ends. Let's rewind a bit, set the stage properly, because a moment like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. James Carter isn't a lawyer, not by any stretch of the imagination. He's 38, a mechanic with hands stained black from axle grease, a father of 3 who spent more nights hungry than fed. He grew up in a shotgun house on the edge of town, the kind where the wind whistled through cracks in the walls, and the only heat came from a rusted stove. School? He got through 5th grade before the cotton fields called. His family needed every pair of hands to survive. But James had a hunger that went beyond food. At night, when the kids were asleep and the world was quiet, he'd sit by a flickering kerosene lamp, poring over books he'd scavenged, old law texts, dog-eared Bibles, anything with words that could teach him something. Why? Because he'd seen too many people like him chewed up and spat out by a system that didn't even pretend to be fair. He wasn't just reading to pass the time. He was arming himself. Now, let's talk about that system for a minute. I've spent years digging into the bones of racial discrimination, and let me tell you, the courts in the Jim Crow South weren't just biased. They were a machine built to grind down anyone who didn't fit the mold. Think about it. Laws like vagrancy or disturbing the peace were vague enough to snag anyone with the wrong skin color who dared to step out of line. I've read trial transcripts where black defendants were sentenced in minutes, no evidence needed, just a white man's word against theirs. The judge laughing at James? That's not an accident. It's the sound of a man so sure of his power, he doesn't even see the threat standing right in front of him. And that's what makes this story so electric, because James is about to flip the script in a way no one saw coming. Back to the courtroom. James is there on a trumped-up charge, disturbing the peace, they call it. What really happened? He'd gone to Mr. Hargrove's general store to buy a sack of flour. Hargrove, a wiry man with a permanent sneer, handed him half a sack and charged him full price. James, calm as ever, pointed it out. "Sir, this ain't right," he said. Hargrove's face went red, and next thing James knew, the sheriff was hauling him in. That's the South in '56. Justice wasn't blind. It was just deaf to anyone black. The judge, a man named Harold T. Grayson, has seen 100 cases like this. To him, James is a nuisance, a fly to swat away. "You got anything to say before I send you off?" Grayson asks, still smirking. The gallery leans in, expecting a stammer, a plea, maybe nothing at all. But James steps forward. "Your Honor," he begins, his voice low but steady. "I'd like to address the court." Grayson's eyebrows shoot up, and that laugh comes again. Short, sharp, like he's humoring a child. "Go on, then," he says. James takes a breath, and then it starts. Under the Constitution of these United States, 14th Amendment, Section 1, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens, nor deny to any person equal protection under the law. This charge, Disturbing the peace requires evidence. Where's the witness who says I raised my voice? Where's the proof I did anything but ask for fair measure? The room freezes. Grayson's smirk vanishes. The prosecutor, a young man named Ellis, stumbles over an objection, but it's weak, half-formed. Let's pause here, because this is where the story catches fire. James isn't just defending himself. He's exposing the rot at the core of this whole charade. I've studied moments like this, and they're rare, but they're seismic. Think about the Scottsboro boys in the 30s. 9 black teenagers accused of rape on a train, no evidence, just white fear and fury. Their trials were a mockery, but they sparked a movement. James isn't on that scale, not yet, but he's channeling that same spirit. He's not supposed to know the law. He's not supposed to speak it back to power. And yet here he is, quoting amendments like a preacher quotes scripture, turning the courtroom into his pulpit. Grayson tries to regain control. That's enough of your nonsense, he snaps. But James isn't done. Your Honor, if I may, Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, said separate but equal was lawful. But Brown versus Board, just 2 years ago, said it ain't equal if it's separate. Now, I ain't here to argue schools, but if the law says I'm equal, how come I'm standing here for a skin a man to weigh his scales right? The gallery murmurs. A woman in the back, white, middle-aged, puts a hand to her mouth. Ellis, the prosecutor, objects again, louder this time, but James keeps going. And if we're talking local law, Ordinance 12-4 says a merchant's gotta give fair trade. Mr. Hargrove broke that, not me. So who's disturbing the peace here? Now, let's dig into this a little deeper, because this is where my years of research come alive. James is doing something extraordinary. He's not just fighting his case. He's dismantling the myth of white superiority brick by brick. I've seen this pattern before. Black folks in history, denied education, denied rights, still finding ways to outsmart the system. Take Robert Smalls, a slave who stole a Confederate ship in 1862 and sailed it to freedom, using nothing but his wits and a borrowed uniform. Or Ida B. Wells, who turned her pen into a sword against lynching in the 1890s. James fits right into that lineage. He's not a name in your history books yet, but he's a hero in the making. And here's where I'll stir the pot. Some might say he's reckless, risking his life for a sack of flour. But isn't that the real scandal? That he had to risk his life for what should have been his by right? If that gets your blood boiling, hit that like button. Share this story, because we're nowhere near the end. The judge's face is a storm cloud now. He bangs his gavel, but it's more petulant than powerful. You think you're some kind of lawyer boy, he growls. James meets his gaze. No, sir. Just a man who knows what's fair. That's the line that breaks something. Maybe not the system, but definitely Grayson's composure. The prosecutor scrambles, calling Hargrove to the stand, but the shopkeeper's story falls apart under James's quiet, relentless questions. You say I yelled, sir? What did I say exactly? Hargrove stammers, caught in a lie. The gallery's murmurs grow louder. A black teenager in the back clenches his fists, hope flickering in his eyes. Let's bring in another layer here, a subplot that ties this all together. Imagine a woman named Ella, James's wife, sitting in that gallery. She's 35, wiry and tough, with scars on her hands from years of laundry work. She's the one who pushed James to read those books, who stayed up with him stitching together arguments while their kids slept. She's seen him beaten down before, literally, by a deputy's baton in 52 for loitering near a white diner. But she's also seen him rise every time. Today, she's holding her breath, praying this isn't the day he pushes too far. Her presence adds weight to James's fight. It's not just for him. It's for her, for their kids, for every soul in that segregated balcony. Back to the climax. Grayson's had enough. Case dismissed, he mutters, slamming the gavel so hard it echoes. James nods, turns, and walks out, Ella falling in step beside him. The room erupts, some in outrage, some in awe. Grayson slumps in his chair, staring at the empty spot where James stood, his laughter replaced by a silence that'll haunt him for years. Outside, word spreads. By nightfall, folks are whispering about the mechanic who outsmarted a judge. It's not a revolution, not yet, but it's a spark. So what's the lesson here? After all these years studying these stories, I've come to this. Brilliance isn't a gift you're given. It's a fire you stoke, especially when the world tries to snuff it out. James didn't win because he was lucky. He won because he refused to lose. But here's the controversy to chew on. What if he'd lost? What if Grayson had sent him to jail? Or worse, would his genius still matter? I say yes, because every stand he took chipped away at the lie that people like him don't belong. The system didn't fall that day, but it wobbled. And every wobble counts. Let's linger on that final image. James and Ella walking home. The sun dipping low, their shadows long and unbroken. That's not just a victory, it's a promise. If this story hit you like it hit me, smash that like button, share it with the world, because these are the tales that remind us. The fight's not over, but the fighters? They're still here, and they're still winning, one word at a time.